They're taken care of. Today, though, we're going to be in Joshua chapter 7. I'm going to read verses 1 through 15 and then 24 through 25 from the New Living Translation. If you have Joshua 7, somebody shout, "Word." It reads this way: But Israel violated instructions about the things set apart for the Lord. A man named Achan had stolen some of these dedicated things, so the Lord was very angry with the Israelites. Achan was the son of Carmi, a descendant of Zimri, son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah. Joshua sent some of his men from Jericho to spy out the town of Ai, east of Bethel, near Beth-aven. When they returned, they told Joshua, there's no need for all of us to go up there. It won't take more than 2,000 or 3,000 men to attack Ai. Since there are so few of them, don't make all our people struggle to go up there. So approximately 3,000, somebody shout 3,000. 3,000 warriors were sent, but they were soundly defeated. The men of Ai chased the Israelites from the town gate as far as the quarries, and they killed about 36 who were retreating down the slope. The Israelites were paralyzed with fear at this turn of events, and their courage melted away. Joshua and the elders of Israel tore their clothing in dismay, threw dust on their heads, and bowed face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord until evening. And verse 7 reads, Then Joshua cried out, O sovereign Lord, why did you bring us across the Jordan River if you're going to let the Amorites kill us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side. Lord, what can I say now that Israel has fled from its enemies? For when the Canaanites and all the other people living in the land hear about it, they will surround us and wipe our name off the face of the earth. And then what will happen to the honor of your great name? But the Lord said to Joshua, Get up. Why are you lying on your face like this? Israel has sinned and broken my covenant. They have stolen some of the things that I commanded must be set apart for me. And they have not only stolen them, but have lied about it and hidden the things among their own belongings. That is why the Israelites are running from their enemies in defeat. For now, Israel itself has been set apart for destruction. I will not remain with you any longer unless, somebody say unless, you destroy the things among you that was set apart for destruction. Get up, look at your neighbor, say, get up. Command the people to purify themselves in preparation for tomorrow. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Hidden among you, O Israel, are things set apart for the Lord. You will never defeat your enemies until you remove these things from among you. In the morning, you must present yourselves by tribes, and the Lord will point out the tribe to which the guilty man belongs. That tribe must come forward with his clan, and the Lord will point out the guilty clan. That clan then will come forward, and the Lord will point out the guilty family. Finally, each member of the guilty family must come forward one by one. Then the one who has stolen what is set apart for destruction will himself be burned with fire, along with everything he has, for he has broken the covenant of the Lord and has done a horrible thing. Verses 24 through 25, and we're done. Verse 24 says, Then Joshua and all the Israelites took Achan, the silver, the robe, the bar gold, his sons, daughters, cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, tent, and everything he had, and they brought them to the valley of Achor. Then Joshua said to Achan, Why have you brought trouble on us? The Lord will now bring trouble on you. And all the Israelites stoned Achan and his family and burned their bodies. They piled a great heap of stones over Achan, which remains to this day. That is why the place has been called the Valley of Trouble ever since. So the Lord was no longer angry. I want you to look at your neighbor as you take your breath after that painful reading of that story. And look at your neighbor in the face and say, Neighbor, accountability matters in decision making. You can be seated in the presence of the Lord on this wonderful Lord's Day. Accountability matters in decision making. While standing in front of the audience preparing to elaborate on what is being viewed and what is about to be viewed. The clip begins with him getting pounded and then falling to the canvas. Then he says, I didn't think I was going to lose, but I don't know how I thought I could have won. I wasn't training properly, but I was beating everybody, even though I wasn't even training like I should have been. These are the words, and those were the words of Mike Tyson as he spoke to a crowd about his performance that day, losing in stunning fashion, Brother Sandy, to Buster Douglas, which cost him being the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing. Now, if you read and you research this, there have been several interviews over the years since Mike Tyson's defeat of Buster Douglas on that fateful evening. But what we realize is there have been several interviews since that particular defeat. And seemingly, as the years went by, Mike did not make more excuses. He made less excuses. And he took more accountability for why he lost the fight he was expected to win, rather than lose a fight that he could have won based on who he was, what he had going for him, and what was expected of him. Now, here's what I want to bring to the text, to bring to our point today. This may be why one writer is quoted as making this statement about accountability. Everybody say accountability. One writer wrote this about accountability. He said, accountability is not only what we do, but what we do not do for which we are accountable. It's not only what we do, but we're accountable for what we didn't do that we should have done. And that is also what we need to be held accountable for. Another writer states that accountability separates the wishers in life from the action takers that care enough about their future to account for their daily actions. And here in our text today, we see the Israelites are being held accountable. They're being held accountable by God as they continue their journey in the conquering of the promised land. And although they made it to the promised land, the job isn't complete. It's like Kobe Bryant, who is in the NBA Finals, and they've won a few games. And a reporter asked him, why aren't you smiling? You had a great game, and you've won several games already. And Kobe just simply looks back at them and says, job finished, job's not done. I can't get all excited because the job is not done. The Israelites had left the wilderness and now crossed over the Jordan. And once they got into the promised land, it was occupied, and they already had one victory, but the job was not done. They still had more to do, more to conquer, because the assignment was not complete. And although they made it to this promised land, we recognize, like Mike Tyson, if they were going to complete their mission and make the best decisions in order to go forward, there were some things that they and we must be accountable for, even if we face some defeats along the way. And in order to bounce back and finish strong, there needs to be accountability so we can make decisions that will help us get the victory that God desired and designed for our lives. I just want to share a few things with you today and with us today as I share from my private time spending with God and from the Word of God as we look and see today why accountability matters in decision making. There are 5 particular points and things that we can be held accountable for, that we will be held accountable for in order to make sure that we make the progress that's necessary in our decision making. First of all, here we recognize here in verses 2 through 3, you can write this down. Number 1, we'll be held accountable for your vision and volume. Your vision and volume. These Israelites were being held accountable for their vision and their volume. What does that simply mean? When you read verses 2 through 3, you'll realize that Joshua and the Israelites coming off of a victory over Jericho. Just in the prior chapter, we realized that Jericho was a walled city, and God had allowed them to march around that wall and make sure that they shouted and they had a strategy, and the walls came down and they went in and they took over the city as God had commanded them to do so and given them the ability. And Joshua and the Israelites are coming off of a high, and here they're about to face a town by the name of Ai. God's vision of them conquering their next town by the name of Ai is one that should be a sure victory. After all, Ai is a smaller town and didn't look like much. So the troop destiny, or should I say strategy, that militaries use to determine the volume or the amount of soldiers that should go into a city and be able to manage that city and also handle any forces that come through. Troop destiny, or should I say the amount of soldiers or the volume of soldiers that are necessary, they kind of measure that and they make they make a strategy based off of who they're facing. And in this particular situation, Joshua had sent some spies from his army to go check out the land of Ai, see what they were about. And these spies came back and they told Joshua, hey, we ain't got to take everybody over there. They ain't about much. They look soft. We don't make us struggle, because getting there is going to be challenging. Don't make all of us struggle to try to go up there. Just take only about 3,000 of us. Take only about 3,000. Out of all the thousands that we have, just take about 3,000. That ought to do the trick. And here's what we got to realize. They thought Ai would be easy to handle. The volume of soldiers would be much less than what they had when they defeated Jericho. But here we see when God gives a vision, because his vision was to take Ai. And he gave that vision, and Joshua caught that vision and shared that vision with the people. When God gives a vision, make sure you understand troop destiny. In other words, the question you need to ask yourself when God gives vision is, when you're about to approach, or we're about to approach something and attack something and try to conquer it, simply is this. Question should be, should we bring the best we have, or should we just do enough just to get the job done? Whatever decision you make, understand that there will be consequences. Somebody shout consequences. We talked about that last week. Whatever decision you make, if you take everything with you, or if you just take just enough, if you just give just enough effort, if you just give just enough to make it by, and you think that's going to make it and make it happen, understand whichever decision we make, we're going to have to be held accountable for the consequences of that decision. And we must make sure we are willing to take accountability for the decisions we make. First of all, your vision and volume is what we can be held accountable for. Here's the second thing we see in verses 4 through 5. Not only vision and volume, but secondly, your vanquishing. Big word. Your vanquishing. It's V-A-N, read on the screen. You get the rest. Vanquishing. Vanquishing. Well, what does this mean, you're vanquishing? Well, here it is. Once I told you in verses 4 through 5, and you read verses 4 through 5, out of the thousands of soldiers that Israel had available, once again, they only took 3,000, and they were vanquished. What vanquished means is they got their behinds kicked. They were totally destroyed. They were run up out of the country of Ai. They were run up out of the villages. They were tucking their tails and running. Here it is, big, bad, bold Israel coming up against little old Ai, and now Ai is chasing your tail. Now understand, the text says they were chased out of there, and even some, at least 36 of them, were killed in verses 4 through 5. Not only were they defeated, but this confident group now is licking their wounds. And not only that, the text says that fear has now entered into their hearts, where not long ago there was boldness, there was confidence, and there were a whole lot of yes we cans. Yes she cans. There's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of boldness, a whole lot of confidence. And now fear has crept into the hearts of these Israelites. Confidence reigns supreme. Now here's what we got to realize. Here's what we got to think about. We think about the vanquishing and being held accountable. See, here's the thing. The strategy you have seems great on paper or in your head. But here's what I want somebody to realize. But you don't know how effective a strategy is until you actually execute that strategy. Let me give it to you like this. It was the same Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Now Israel had been punched in the mouth hard by Ai. And they were rattled after they got punched in the mouth by Ai. And the text says, after that lick, after that punch, after that beating, after that vanquishing, here's what took place, Deacon LD. The text says, the courage of their hearts melted away. Courage began to melt away. They weren't just defeated physically, but they were losing the battle in their will to either keep fighting or ever want to fight again because of what just took place in the vanquishing of their army. And their spirits were broken. Their spirits were hurt because they were not supposed to lose, and especially not to Ai. And here's where they get to find out, though, what they're really made of. Are you really soldiers, and is God really on your side? Here's what we see. So not only do we be held accountable for your vision and your volume and your vanquishing, but here's this third thing we see in verses 6 through 9. Read verses 6 through 9. When you are held accountable for those two things, here's the third one, your viewpoint. Held accountable for your viewpoint. When we pick up verses 6 through 9, here's what we discover in verses 6 through 9. When you read verses 6 through 9, here's what you'll see. After being punched in the mouth and now leaking courage, probably searching for liquid courage. Some of y'all don't know what liquid courage is. If you don't know, go to your nearest Total Wine. Because when you go through some hard times every now and then, you don't just wait for Communion Sunday to have your communion. I wish I had somebody here who could be honest with me. Some stuff will drive you to places you didn't think you'd ever get to. Am I talking to somebody here today? You ain't never smoked no cigarettes, but you thought about it. After some stuff happens in your life, here they are. They've been punched in the mouth. They're leaking courage. They're not as confident as they once were before they came upon this defeat because the strategy they went with didn't go as planned. It caused them to do some soul searching. And in verses 6 through 9, here's what we see. Verse 6 through 9, they are now humbled and less confident. Now, humbled and less confident. Why? Because the leader and the elders, we find them in the text in verses 6 through 9. The leaders and the elders are in dismay for a period of time. Matter of fact, it says they got together, they tore their robes and laid down in ashes and they sat there before the Lord, and they didn't want nobody to bother them for a moment. Look at somebody and say, just give me a second, give me a second, give me a second. Yes. Every now and then when you go through something, when your heart gets broken, when you deal with something, you need a second to get yourself together. You need to find out what happened. That's why every now and then you watch boxing, and when a boxer gets hit, if he ain't knocked out, the referee goes over and lays beside him and says, you got 8 seconds. Are you okay? And the boxer is like, yeah, I'm all right. He makes him stand up, chest judge, or can you swing? Because right now, if I put you back on it, that boy about to put them bees back on your head. I'm trying to give you a second to get yourself together to see if you're ready to continue to fight. And here's where they were. They were on the ground. They were in God's face. They were broken. They were hurt. They were discouraged. They were trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And the leaders and the elders are in dismay. And they lay before God, ask God, God, what just happened? What just happened? Why would you let us get this far after changing leadership from an older Moses who got us to the edge of the promised land, then we switched to a younger Joshua who got us over the Jordan and seemingly was taking us to total victory because the momentum seems to be on our side. Things were going well. The old dude is gone. The young one is here. We cross over the Jordan, and it seems like victory is already ours. I hear you, baby. That's how we felt all week long. Here it is. And when we look at it, Joshua, talking to God in his prayer life, look at it, verse 6 through 9. Joshua even considered how content he would have been and could have been if he had not even tried and stayed on the other side and stayed comfortable and didn't even attempt coming into the promised land. I mean, everyone in the land feared Israel, and they knew that God was with Israel. But now, Joshua is wondering how the enemies that defeated them and the ones that are around them that will scatter them now know they have a weakness. They've been defeated. And he's wondering, will they still think God is on our side? Or, not just that, is God as powerful as y'all made him out to be? I'm trying to help somebody today because when you go through certain things, your faith can get rocked. You go through certain things that'll make you question, you're supposed to be a big, strong God. How in the world could this happen if you're an all-powerful God? We prayed about this and this still happened. We obeyed you and this still happened. Are you as big as you say you are? Not only will the other enemies be asking that, but the people might start asking that. Joshua, being the leader, is challenged in this particular situation. Now here's what we got to realize. Joshua says, God, in essence, I'm concerned about your reputation. Concerned about what's going to happen now that your people have been defeated. Now here's what I want you to understand. His and Israel's faith was shaken. He and Israel feel, listen to this, exposed and they have much vulnerability in their hearts. Basically, here's what I want you to understand. Basically, they saw this whole situation from their viewpoint, from their position. From where they were sitting, this is what it looked like. And they said, listen, since we're not in this by ourselves, we need to see it from God's viewpoint. They want to get God's viewpoint because God can see it in ways they could never see it. And since he sits high and looks down low, he would look at their loss in a different view. I want somebody to understand that personal reflection and prayer, along with mourning losses, are important. Laying before God in prayer has its place, and it should be practiced when things fall apart. But we're held accountable because we need to make sure we have the right viewpoint. And then number 4, you write this down. Next thing we recognize is what we're going to be held accountable is for your violation and verification. Somebody shout violation. Somebody shout verification. Now here it is. They're laying on the ground. Joshua's praying to God. He's in his prayer time. He's in his morning time. He's talking to God about his broken heart and how loss just took place. And he's in the middle of that thing. Not only is he in it, the leaders are in it. Not only the leaders in it, all the children of God are in it. They're all there laying on their faces and they're trying to get God's viewpoint. And here's how God responds to Joshua. And he does it in a way that's unexpected to a reader who has not had God to respond to them in such a way after seeking answers while your heart is broken. And when your heart is broken and you talk to God, you expect him to come with sensitivity. You expect him to rub on your head and send you a dove and drop you a leaf. And you expect the heavens to open up and rain down showers of blessings. And you expect it at this point in your journey to be singing, you may wait. You expect to be singing your praise songs about what God has done. And you're praying and you're laying out. And here it is. God, you're about to comfort us. You're about to give us strength. And here's what God does. God looks at Joshua, looks at God's people, and he says to Joshua, get up off your face and get on your feet. Get up. Look at somebody say, get up. And what he's basically saying is prayer time is over. The answer to why they were defeated was because they were in violation of God's will. And you don't understand what is going on? It was their vices that kept them from victory against Ai. Somebody shout vices. In other words, your issues is what tripped you up. You're here on your face praying. I'm about to tell you what went down. What it basically said, let me tell you what your vices are. You suffered defeat. Let me tell you what the issue is. They sinned. They had broken his covenant. They had stolen some things. And then he says they lied about it. Here's what he says. Here's what he says when you read the text. Nothing was to be taken when they defeated Jericho. God says, defeat Jericho, destroy everything, don't take nothing with you. But here it is. Somebody took something they weren't supposed to take. Somebody violated the word of the Lord. And now Israel is not in good standing with God, and they risk further defeat because God says, you lost to Ai, but you're about to lose to me if you don't correct this issue. God wants Joshua to verify this. When you read the text, he tells Joshua, let me tell you, you don't believe me, I want you to verify for yourself. Let me tell you how I want you to verify. Here's how I want you to know, because I want you to see for yourself, and I want you to evaluate for yourself why you suffered this defeat, and I want you to go through this process. He told the next day, he said, tell the people to get themselves together, purify themselves, and I'm going to go and have you go tribe by tribe, and I'm going to point out who the real issue was, and I want you to hold them accountable. Every tribe, though, let's be clear, the 12 tribes of Israel, some had already gotten their stuff on the other side, and they came on, joined on to this side. There are 12 tribes of Israel. Every tribe wasn't guilty. Matter of fact, the majority of them did their black job. And there were more tribes making right decisions for the entire nation. Yet there were a few tribes that sold their own people out and their nation, here it is, when you read the text, for a petty robe, some silver, and gold. That's what you see in the text. That's what God is upset about. Matter of fact, coins and clothes caused them to put themselves before the entire movement. And the Bible says, you read your Bible, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Can I talk to you about what the text is saying? It proves to be true here because every tribe was lined up and publicly, somebody shout publicly, and God himself says he would expose the guilty family and they should be held accountable, being burned with fire with everything he has because he broke the covenant of the Lord. And he's done a horrible thing to his nation. And God wanted him to search and discover the evidence for himself. Now here's the deal. He needed to see what tribes for himself. He needed to see what tribe said they had his back, yet were making treasonous and selfish decisions behind his back. Knowing God was not pleased with their actions. They were talking good. We got your back, Joshua. we going to do this. And then Joshua went and checked their name on the voter roll to see if they actually voted. Because you know you can look that up. Even your favorite celebrities, which we worship so much, talk much noise and didn't even vote. Now here's the deal. They were held accountable. God says, I'm holding you accountable for your violation. And I want you to make sure that you get your own verification in the way that I told you. He said, I'm verifying it. I want you to verify it. Joshua went, and you see the rest of the text, and you see verses 24, the rest of that chapter, what you realize that Joshua did exactly, Brother Joel, what God told him to do. Lined everybody up. And after Joshua went tribe by tribe, following God's instructions, here's what happened. He came to the tribe of Judah. And in that tribe was the clan of Zerah. And in that clan was discovered a man named Achan, who was discovered to be the culprit who confessed to being the cause of all this calamity. He confessed it because he said, my own greed made me make this poor decision. And Joshua and all the Israelites took him, his family, all his stuff, and the stuff he stole, and went to the valley of Achor. Okay, here it is. I told you, number 5 is your valley and victory. Your valley and victory is what you're going to be held accountable for. Joshua took him to the valley, and he took all his stuff, and all the people went with him, and then he took his family as well, because he said, you did it, and your family knew about it. All y'all in violation. And God's going to handle all of y'all, because you were in cahoots. You were working together on this. Now, understand this. Here's what God said, and God said it through Joshua, and Joshua said it to Achan. Here's what he said. Joshua says, since you brought trouble on the Lord's people and nation, God was now going to bring trouble on you. Now, listen to this. And they stoned them, burned their bodies, buried them under a pillar of stone. And then God told Joshua, it's time to go get the victory. Y'all missed that. They held who was accountable, who needed to be held accountable, held them accountable, dealt with them, and then God says, now you're ready to go get the victory. Okay, here it is. You have another chance since you have been accountable and your people are accountable. Listen to this. Ai was still gloating in their victory because they won. Israel, it was still wallowing in defeat because they lost. And once accountability was had, listen what takes place. God speaks to Joshua and says, they won and they're still rejoicing. But check this out. I'm about to give you the victory. You're still not getting that. Let me show it to you. I'm with you. Ai was still gloating. And when the battle was over, let me tell you, if you read the rest of your story in chapter 8, Israel got the victory. Can I tell you why they got the victory? They got the victory because they dealt with their issues in the valley and they came out with a better strategy. Boy, I wish I had somebody today. Could you elbow your neighbor, say, neighbor, you might have lost, but deal with your valleys because God's got victory planned for your life. I wish I had 3 people who could get excited. You still not getting that? See, I know many of you, like me, were discouraged because the vision you had this week was your candidate winning. And that candidate didn't win. If it was a particular candidate. You thought Kamala was going to bring that thing home like I did. If that was your candidate choice. Now, you know, around here, we don't trip on who you choose. Because everybody has the right to choose, even if it's the wrong choice. Don't trip on that. Everybody has the right
choose, even if it's the wrong choice. Now, here's what I want you to understand. Some people kept saying, well, God is on the throne. God is on the throne. Can I educate you on something real quick? Let me educate you on something. See, that's an excuse not to handle your business. Okay, you're still not getting that. Here it is. God has always been on the throne. But can I tell you, when some instances when he was still on the throne, God was on the throne when black folks was in slavery. God was on the throne when the Jews had a Holocaust. God was on the throne when we couldn't even vote in this country. God was on the throne when black folk were being hung from trees like strange fruit. God was on the throne when the Native Americans were killed for welcoming immigrants from another country. God was on the throne during the Indians' trail of tears. God was on the throne when Amber Geiger shot Botham Jean. God has always been on the throne, yet he empowered us to bring his kingdom to this earth. You don't read your Bible? Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That means if I'm a believer, my job is to correct what ain't right until it looks like what God wants it to look like. I wish I had 5 people who realize that we are responsible for changing things. And many thought that everybody else could stay home, while the few million would be enough to get the job done. And then you saw your candidate was vanquished. And you've been spending time trying to get God's viewpoint, because from where you're sitting, victory should have been yours. I know. And God is saying to you, get up. You still not getting that? There's been a violation, and I need you to check for verification. You prayed and cried, and now it's time to get up off your blessed assurance, off the ground, and get on your feet and look through the data and verify the truth for yourself. Oh, go look at the data. It'll tell you what happened. It'll tell you what happened. Many did your job. If you did your job, put your hands together. Put your hands together. Yeah, you did your job. Matter of fact, pat your neighbor on the back. Say, thank you for doing your job. You did your job. You did your job. And now here's the deal. Many of you did your job. But there were some who called themselves children of God who went against what they knew was wrong and made a dangerous choice. Let me break it down. Let me break the stats down for you. The majority of the black tribe, the men and the women tribe, did our jobs. The majority of the Hispanic women tribe did their job based off percentages. Some Hispanic men did their job. But when you look at the numbers, there were many of the white tribe who did their job. But a large majority of them, especially the white women clan, supported someone white that they would have never supported if that same person was black. You still not getting it? The vile, illegal acts, misogynistic tirades, the calling the Puerto Ricans trash. Now understanding that the poor whites and blacks and others who were poor when he was in office the first time are still poor now and going to be poor when he get back in office. Can I help somebody? That's what was voted for. Now here's what I want you to understand. Some of us, some people were bought because of, once again, a $1,300 stimulus check. And we went staff and we talked about that. Because here's what I want you to understand. The reason that we're holding up a $1,300 stimulus check and we're bought off with a $1,300 stimulus check, you want your stimmy from Jimmy. Here it is. The reason that is because their mindset hasn't shifted from living off of their income and budgeting throughout the year. And every year, they're only waiting on an income tax check. And when they get an income tax check in our community, the way white people come up is different the way black people come up. Can I talk to you real quick? White people raise their kids because they had the education and some other things. For the most part, that your come up is when you get some money, you invest that money. You go buy some land and not a Land Rover. You don't go buy more drink. You don't go buy more stuff. You buy something that will appreciate, not depreciate. I wish I had time to talk real quick. It is that mentality of them coming up that they end up having more, but our come up because we ain't had nothing. When it was a struggle, because mama didn't have nothing. And when I finally get some money in my hands, I'm about to show them. Even though this car got 240,000 miles on it. Even though I'm driving around and my tires are bald. Even though I ain't got that back tooth fixed and I'm still out here about to floss on them. A black come up is getting new chains and stuff people can see. And here's the deal. Trump understood that all I got to do is throw these Negroes some peanuts. And they'll fall for it. Because they're going to floss. They're looking for a hand out. And what God is saying, I'm trying to give you a hand up. That you learn how to stand for yourself. Now here it is. I'm done. Because here's what I want you to understand. Here's what I want you to understand. Some people did their jobs. Some people voted against their own interest. Now, I want you to understand a proven criminal who doesn't pay his bills and was chosen to lead this nation's economy again because they expect him to bring silver and gold so we can buy more clothes. Clothes and coin. Now, recognizing you don't have to buy everybody else's name if you learn to value your own name. How about coming together and putting your own business together and your own clothing line together and put it on your own back instead of working out making other folk rich? But you are educated, Negro. Here are the facts. Do the evaluation. When 7.3 million registered voters in Texas alone didn't even show up to the polls. 7.3 registered. It's a violation. And like Israel, God sometimes allows us to lose when we have everything to win, but we don't make the decisions that matter. Now, I want to be clear. God is not a Democrat. And God ain't a Republican. But he is holy. He is concerned not just about the rich getting richer, but he's also concerned about the less fortunate. Now, here's the deal. Back to our story. Just because AI won doesn't mean they were God's chosen. Y'all missed that. AI defeated Israel. That don't still mean that God chose you. Here's what I want you to understand. They won only because Israel did not reach their potential. And while AI was still cheering, God was getting his people ready and in shape for the future. Oh, you better look at somebody. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, just because they doing good don't mean it's all good. I want you to understand, and I'm done, but just like your life, there were some things you lost, and there are some times you've been defeated, searching for answers, feeling vulnerable, wondering why God let you get this far and seemingly just let you fall as if there is no hope. But I want you to look at your neighbor, say, neighbor, God's not done with you yet. That's the wrong neighbor. Look at your neighbor and say, God's not done with you yet. Like God spoke to Joshua to hold Achan accountable and then put his war clothes back on and go out with all that he has instead of taking half the people, to take all your people with you in this next strategy. This is what God told him, and here's what I want you to understand. God promised him that he would get the victory this time. Somebody shout, this time. I want you to understand that God is a God of another chance. I want somebody to understand that God, sometimes by his grace, will give you a rematch. I wish I had somebody who needed a rematch. Sometimes the very place you lost, God will send you back. But this time, when you go back to the place where you lost, God has built you up so much. After you prayed and you cried, after you thought it all over, after you've held yourself accountable, God can put you back in position for a rematch. Could you elbow somebody and say, I'm ready for a rematch? Ai was defeated by Israel. And could I tell you right now, what you're facing is an Ai in your life. And if you're facing an Ai, all I want you to do is put your hands together. Because if you're still standing and God's still on the throne and you're dealing with your situation, you're ready to search your soul in your valley. And I want you to recognize your issues got to be dealt with in your valley. You have to eliminate the excuses that you've been losing, the reason why you lost in your valley. Do I have somebody? You got to deal with your vices in your valley and watch God give you the victory you know you didn't deserve. Somebody here today needs to know once again that weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. The same God that helped you heal when you lost your Moses, the same God that helped you cross your Jordan, the same God that helped you defeat your Jericho, the same God that kept you alive after your defeat in Ai, the same God that's willing and able to give you another chance, is ready to give you another chance. Do I have somebody in the house who said, God, I'm ready to be accountable. I didn't do all I should have done. I'm ready to hold myself accountable. I'm ready to hold the folk around me accountable. I'm through with making excuses. I repent for where I missed it. But I tell you right now, when it's all over and God gives me another chance, I'm going to take that chance. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to do what he called me to do. Do I have somebody in the house who say, I thank God that he knows how to check me when I don't get it right. I thank God that he didn't let me stay in my sin, that he didn't let me go ahead and be a fool again. But I feel a new wind blowing your way. Do I have somebody elbow your neighbor and say, neighbor, you ought to get excited, because if he left you alive, that's amazing. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Blind, but now I see. Here it is. Through many dangers, toils and snares, I've already come. Somebody clap for grace. Somebody thank him for mercy. Somebody thank him for another chance. If it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, I'd have been wiped out a long time ago. But his grace is sufficient, but his mercy is everlasting. Do I have somebody who can praise him that he didn't let you die in it, that he didn't let you leave everything behind, but he left you alive? Left you alive for a rematch. And you ought to start training for victory, because God's not done. Say that with me. God is not done. Look at somebody saying, I'm not either. But you got to be accountable. No more excuses. Do your job. Do your assignment. Real maturity is when you get to the point you stop blaming everybody else for what didn't go right for you. What could I have done better? And after I've done all I could do, sometimes God will still allow a defeat to humble me, to look to the hills from which cometh my help. Don't get upset because people are winning when you thought you should have been. God ain't done. You've only read the first few chapters. In the end, you win. I wish I had some winners in the house today. Do I have any winners in the house today? Come on, stand on your feet today. Accountability is a tough thing, but it makes you mature. It makes you mature. When you get hurt, when you lose, when the marriage didn't work out, it's easy to blame your ex, but it took two to tango. It's easy to blame other people when stuff doesn't go like you think it should. And I want to challenge somebody today. Face it. Call it. It is what it is. And God is who he says he is. And anybody who's thankful that God gives a second chance. Because the truth is, you blew your second chance a long time ago too. How many have blown chances that God gave you? Now, how many people are thankful that even after all the chances you blew, God still ain't through?